Welcome to the Curious About Nature podcast. This is a podcast for folks who want to connect with nature and rewild childhood. Hosted by Rachel Mills, Buttercup Learning's founder, an educator with 20 plus years of experience with a passion for animation, the natural world, and conservation. Rachel focuses on getting digital kids outdoors and having fun in nature, promoting well-being and a can-do attitude to local wildlife conservation and sustainable living. Join her and her guests for their stories, experiences, and tips to support outdoor learning and nature connection.
Welcome to the Curious About Nature podcast. This week I'm joined by Carol Murdoch, the founder of Love Outdoor Learning and author of Breaking Into the Playground. Hi there, Carol.
Hi there.
It's lovely to have you on. I've been following you quietly for a while on social media and looking at your website in particular. So I'm really excited today to have you as a guest. Before we kick into the main questions, could you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, I grew up very much an inner city kid from a deprived area and ended up being founder of Love Outdoor Learning. It was a long and complicated journey, and a good chunk of that was working about 20 years in education, over 10 years of that as a primary school teacher. And then I decided that teaching wasn't entirely for me. I loved teaching, I loved the outdoors. What I didn't love was the admin and everything else. So I decided to start my own business, and Love Outdoor Learning was founded.
I can completely resonate with that. I was an educator in higher education and I sort of taught lots of different age groups prior to that as well. And I love teaching, but admin, quite happily not do that. But yeah, great. So when did you sort of become interested in outdoor learning then? Where did that come from?
The first outdoor learning training day I had to go to as a teacher, it was maybe 2010, 2011. And I didn't want to be there. I thought it was another fad in education. It was a wild autumn, November sort of horrible, horrible day where the wind was lashing, the rain was coming down. I'd had to travel quite a distance to get there on my Friday afternoon. At that point, we didn't teach Friday afternoons in West Lothian, which was great. So to say I was against it would be fair. I totally thought I was wasting my time, but it was something that I had to do. And I went along and I did the outdoor learning training. And I went back to school and that week delivered an outdoor lesson, more to prove that it wouldn't work with the kids that I was working with. Lo and behold, it worked. And I could see that the kids were thriving. The kids that were struggling indoors, all of a sudden were set free and could do things outdoors. So we kept going with it. Over time, I progressed from mainstream to a severe and complex school to an autism base and back to mainstream. And each and every step of the way, it was always that little nugget of, it's not going to work for these kids, is it? And every single step of the way, it worked. And so I just slowly, against my better judgment, fell in love totally and utterly with outdoor learning and the benefits it brung, not only to the kids, but to me as well.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a sort of shift in mindset as well. And what an amazing day that must have been, sort of that change. Why is it important then for children to spend time outdoors?
Oh, that's such a big can of worms, that one. For some kids in the classroom, you know this as an educator, some of the adults you work with, the classroom isn't a place that they can excel. Those four walls close them down as opposed to let them shine. And if you can take away those four walls, you're taking away one of the barriers to them succeeding in their education and achieving. So for me, that alone is a really, really strong reason to take them outside, besides from the benefits for mental health, attainment, achievement, communication, social skills. You've got all these benefits, but I think the biggest one is it removes a lot of the barriers.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the forest school time for my daughter is like her favorite time of the week. I know, just as a parent and working in business where I spend a lot of time digitally, when I get a break and I get to have that time outside, either with my family or alone, it's so brilliant. It's just a really great way to sort of relax and take stock of things as well. And times now we just spend a lot of time being very busy, don't we? It reminds me to sort of take a step back and have a time for reflection and a moment as well. What can parents and teachers do then to maybe ensure children get more time outdoors?
It's going to sound quite counterintuitive, but bear with me. The first thing is to take the pressure out off going outdoors and do it for
Yeah.
short periods of time. Especially as teachers, I think you feel you've got to go outside for a full lesson or a full afternoon or even a full day. And yeah, there's huge benefits to that. I'm not taking that away. But actually, there's huge benefits to going outside just for 20 minutes. So breaking it down and going, right, I'm going outside and we're going to go a walk to look at colours today. Or we're going to go down to the field and just see what's there. Have a look at the clouds, see what they're doing today. Tiny, tiny little things. It doesn't need to be a big all singing, all dancing, lesson production activity with your child. It can just be really, really simple. And I think if you take the pressure off yourself, it means you can enjoy it as well. And you can get involved because you've not got this pressure of, well, I want to do this, this, and this with my child or my class today. It's, we're going to do this one thing and let's enjoy it and see what comes
Mm.
off of that. You said yourself just there, when you're outside, things happen, a magic happens, and you're free and it just works. Whereas if you go outside putting pressure on yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure from the off.
I think there is that kind of worry that things need to be structured, but they don't, do they? We can just basically just enjoy it and see what happens sometimes, I think, as well. Looking at your website, you offer such a really comprehensive range of support. Could you tell us a little bit more about what you do?
Yeah, in short, we help schools take their curriculum outside and help families take the learning that kids are doing in school outside. That's what we do in short. But the business has been running 7 years and I'm very much ADHD. And so ideas come and it's grown and grown. So we do everything from pupil experiences for school sessions, for school trains, so curriculum sessions and for school sessions. And they're both quite different. We do training for schools as well, whether it's twilights, full days, integrated training where we're taking the class and teacher outside. We've got our magazine, that we've only just started. That goes out quarterly now. We've got our book. There's a lot of things that we do.
That's a lot of stuff to juggle. I'm beyond impressed. I always get laughed at by other small businesses that look at the plans that I've got for Buttercup and the various products and services and things. And I always thought maybe I was taking on a lot, but that's an impressive like raft of stuff you've got there, Carol. So what would you say is your sort of favourite project or favourite service that you offer then at the moment? What do you enjoy doing?
I think am I allowed to pick two? I think
Yeah.
there's two really. One is we do integration programs with children where it's about those kids that are really struggling in the school setting, whether it's primary or secondary school, and the dots that can kind of fall by the wayside and will often get themselves into trouble and all the rest of it. And we do a 6 week program for them where it's a bit of a combination of mindfulness, of behavioural techniques, of forest school. It's a kind of a mishmash of all these things pulling together for a 6 week program where we teach kids that emotions are okay and they're normal, and here's the strategies to help you support you in those. So I love running that 6 week program with kids because you see them coming in quite often a bit lost and not knowing their place, and then by the end of it you can see them leaving with confidence and they're feeling great about themselves, and the feedback that we've got has just been phenomenal. It's a type of project where it's really selfish because it makes me feel good. It's great for the kids, but it makes me feel good as well. And I
Yeah.
think the other thing I'm loving at the moment is we do a give back project every year. So we're well underway of that now and going to schools and meeting them only for a short period of time. It only takes about 45 minutes. But we meet with the management team, find out where the school is at with their outdoor learning, where they want to get to, have a look at their grounds. Quite often school playgrounds are concrete only, and remove some of the barriers and provide them with a great report to say this is the ways that you can get outside. And then again, the feedback from them, this is the third year of doing that, is great. And teachers start seeing that concrete's not a barrier to being
Mm.
outdoors and learning.
I love your enthusiasm. It feels contagious, around the excitement of it as well. I'd love to know more about your Scottish Parliament motion that was in recognition of the work that you've done in terms of difference you've made to children's education. How did that come about?
That came as an absolute bolt of the blue. The first that I knew about it is I've got a friend, Heather, who works at the Scottish Parliament, and she texted me one day to say, "Look what's just come across my desk." And so that's how I first found out about it. It was during COVID, and we'd won a couple of awards for outdoor learning and for my other business, a tutoring one as well. And they focused on the fact that I am not your traditional primary school teacher. The background that I came from and the hurdles that I've overcome to be a teacher, and yet, I've done the teaching and now I'm giving back to the profession on a much bigger level.
Yeah.
That that's why they passed that motion, just to sort of give me a wee pat in the back, which was really nice.
Yeah, it sounds very well deserved. So well done you. Coming back then to some of the tips and stuff, this is a bit that I'm really interested in because obviously you've got lots of experience, practice-based experience in this. Do you have any tips for teachers to make more of their outdoor play spaces? You mentioned about concrete shouldn't be a barrier to getting outside and making the most of that space.
Yeah, I always think it's funny that we look at concrete as being a barrier, because what's a classroom but a concrete cube? And
Yeah.
yet we can make that concrete cube with very little added to it into this amazing space for learning. And yet the concrete outdoor space that's got so much more and offers so much more, we struggle with. So it's taking that step back and reminding yourself that you're used to working on concrete. It's not scary. It's looking at what outdoor learning can be, it's keeping it simple. It could be doing an adjectives lesson with primary school kids and sitting, I mentioned it earlier, looking at the clouds and describing the clouds and the shapes they are, and you're working on that vocabulary so that you can then go inside and do a written piece of work using those descriptions. It doesn't need to be big, it can be really simple. It doesn't need loads of kit. So often when I speak to schools, it's we've got this budget or we have no budget, but what do we need? Do we need 10 building kits? Do we need outdoor classrooms? Do we need this, that, and the next thing? No. No, you don't.
Yeah.
Our kit bag tends to have really simple things in it: string, a chalk, a ball, a whistle, things that you're already going to have either at home or in school. So it's not going to cost anything to put it together in a bag, really, and have that so you've got your grab bag to go outside and it supports learning. Again, it's not getting caught up on those big pieces of equipment. Yeah, they look great, but realistically, how often are they getting used? Some schools I go to, and they've got a great outdoor classroom that's beautiful, but teaching only happens in that area of the playground because that's where the outdoor classroom is. And they might have, that's often in a field or something like that. Over to the side, they've got a wonderful woodland that's still in their playground, but they're not really using it because it's not next to the classroom. So it can also be a bit prohibitive getting the big bits of kit in. Whereas if you go from what you know with the curriculum and just look at how you can do it outside, it makes it much easier.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, as a parent, how might I sort of take some of these ideas or maybe some simple suggestions for taking learning outdoors that I could do with my daughter in spring, maybe in the garden?
In spring, this morning I was working on spring ID kit. Can kids notice the difference between seasons? Because we're so inside nowadays. I mean, prisoners in the UK tend to have more time outdoors than kids. So because we're so indoors these days, and kids are, they're not as aware of the change in the seasons as what you and I would have been, Rachel, when we were kids.
Yeah,
So you're looking at it and going, there's the snowdrops coming up. Can you see the change in the birds? Can you see the change in the trees? What's happening? They've got blossom. What does the blossom mean? Just having those conversations, noticing them. And the more that you guide that, the more your child's going to start noticing things anyway. But then exploring it, what does that tell us about nature? What does that tell us about the seasons? How does that help? What's the purpose of the blossoms? Why are they
yeah,
there? Why is the
yeah,
plant that's been dormant all winter put all its energy into giving us this beautiful flower show? Is that the best thing for it just now? Why is it the best thing for it just now?
yeah. I love that. One of the favourite things that we do as a family is just going out for a walk, but using our senses to talk to each other about what we feel and touch and what we can sort of smell and what we can hear and what we can obviously see. And that's sometimes we sort of like set a little sort of scavenger hunt style thing. What texture can you find that's rough and smooth and so on? And it gives us a little bit of a kind of prompt. So when my daughter's going, oh, it's too wet, I'm too miserable, I don't want to go outside, or whatever it is that's stopping her, it gives her something else to kind of get excited about. We've recently got a nature journal that she has complete control of. She can write in it when she wants or not, as the case may be. She loves bringing home stuff and making a mess, and we find little bits of soil stuck to it. And it's the usual cute thing of a kid not realizing that using a bit of masking tape isn't necessarily going to keep it stuck for very long. And then we have conversations about the science of bonding materials together, and it's been a really interesting project to do together. But she's sort of taken ownership of that. It's like, would you like one? It wasn't you have to have one, but would you like one? And then she designed it herself with the things that she wanted to do in it. Coming on to your amazing book then, Breaking into the Playground, which is a really valuable resource for anyone interested in this as a topic. It's been highly recommended by lots of people I know on Twitter as a read for both parents and teachers. And you're really making activities that are both educational and fun. What are your maybe favourite chapters or tips from your book?
I think one of my favourite bits, and it's something that I revisit regularly, it's in our magazine now as well, is the awareness days throughout the year. Whether it's doing something for Butterfly Day, or it's linking women in science to making rockets and looking at, women astronauts and things like that. It's linking in those awareness days. So the diary section in it is definitely one of my favourite parts, just because it shows how easy it is to integrate outdoor learning with so many other different things. World Book Day as well. There's so much you can do for that. Harry Potter, for example, they do the plants and things, and a lot of the plants that they use and the reasons they use them. If you start looking into the folklore around plants and things like that, they're using folklore. So you can then start looking at that with kids and going, well, what magic spell do you need? What's going to make you feel better? Well, I can't think off the top of my head. I know oak gives me wisdom, so I'm going to take a little oak leaf home because that's going to make me smarter. And
Love
just
it.
linking all these little things in a fun way where it's really simple. It's crazy simple, but it just gets you exploring the outdoors and develops that sense of place. And you can do that through awareness days. I would often find as a teacher, I'd be driving into work and on the radio it'd say, oh, it's such and such day today. And you'd sit there and go, should have planned something for that, really, shouldn't I? Whereas if you know the awareness days are coming up and you've got a list of them and what you can do outdoors, it's dead easy then to head outdoors and support it that way. And 9 times out of 10, it's not just supporting outdoor learning, it's supporting set curricular areas and often more than one.
What's your other favourite resources then for outdoor learning? Maybe yours or other people's?
I love Juliet Robertson from Messy Maths and Dirty Teaching. She is
Mm.
just phenomenal. And at the moment, she is working on updating all her blogs. So her plan is by the end of this year, she's got hundreds of blogs, hundreds and hundreds, but to have all the blogs updated by the end of this year. So she is well worth following because pretty much every week she's got a blog that she's refreshed and is putting back out at the moment. And like the last one was about movable water bowls, something that you could do at home or at school. She's done basically anything you can think outdoorsy. She's done it. Tires, curriculum things, you name it, she has covered it. So I absolutely love what she does. Up here in Scotland, we've got OWL Scotland, Outdoor Woodland Learning, and their website as well is full of books and resources and ideas that are all free. And although it's a Scottish organisation, it works wherever in the world you are. So there's lots out there that's free, that's phenomenal and really high quality.
Yeah. So if I was to go on your website, what do you recommend I look at first? Would it be go and buy your book or something else?
Something else. This is where I am a terrible businesswoman, and I know you've done a lot of the incubator programs as well as me. So you're always taught sell, 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 and this is where I'm terrible because the first page I would tell you to go to is the free resources page
But that's
because
absolutely okay. I think we both have the same problem because I get into trouble for that as well. And it's like I tell people to go to the podcast, and it's like, no, tell them to go and look at your products. But I always think that your products sell themselves if you're enthusiastic about what you're doing. And it's very obvious to me that, Carol, that you're really passionate about this. So yeah, share away.
the free resources page, I think that sells me anyway, to be perfectly blunt. You're going back to that, it does, because it gives you an idea of what my approach is and how we do things. But if you're a parent, there's so many other things in it. Even if you're a teacher, there's so many other things you need to spend money on. So if you can get something for free, go and get it for free. So jump onto the free resources page. That's where you get our magazine. That's where you get our, we've got a science activity there. We've got 20 activities for outdoors. We've got a little bit of staff training for teachers. We have got so many free things on there that it's well worth jumping on there to start off with and just playing with those things before you even think about spending money.
Yeah. But yeah, once you've done that, go and buy Carol's book. What's next for you and Love Outdoor Learning?
Next for us is getting knee deep into our schools programme and working with schools, training schools, and doing our visits as well. We've got over 100 visits to do this year to schools across the UK. A lot of travel, a lot of
Mm.
travel to support a lot of schools, but in amongst that, doing the training, doing the pupil programmes, keeping the magazine going, looking after the membership site as well, and updating new lessons on there. So there's a lot of things coming at the moment.
Looking at your site, I could see that you had a membership site. What do you offer in that then, Carol?
In the membership site, that is a one-stop resource for outdoor learning. It's got, I think, just over 200 lessons on there, hundreds of activities, curriculum plans, progression planners, training. It has got everything that schools in particular, although I know we've got some parents on there that find it helpful, but gives you everything that you need to get outdoors and understand why you're going outdoors. So it's an ever-growing resource, but it is your one-stop shop.
Mm. So it sounds brilliant. Is there any of the recent resources that you could give us a little bit more detail on about what kind of activities you're suggesting within that?
Yeah, well, the one that I added last night, the plants one, that came from a question from one of our members. She was wanting to get outdoors and start exploring with a younger class. I think they were primary three-ish, so that's year two in England. She was wanting to get out and explore plants and was just looking for where to start. So we talked about, starting out getting the kids to identify what a plant is, what a tree is, try and find a weed, which is just a plant in the wrong place, but we call them weeds, and looking at the different sort of categories. And then with the older children, whenever we add a lesson, we say, this is how to do it for the younger kids, but this is how to do it for your 10, 11-year-olds as well. So it covers all the bases from 3 to 11.
Mm.
And with the older ones, it was going into words that I can't even pronounce, to be perfectly honest, Rachel. But the different categories of plants and things like that, and really getting into the science behind that. So, and that was all in sort of lesson one. Lesson two was then researching the plants and what they need and why are they growing in different places. And, for the wee ones, it's as simple as they need water and light. But for the bigger kids, it's then starting to look at the real relationships between the different plants. And well, the snowdrops are growing underneath the trees because they need that little bit of shelter, and it helps them grow and it gives them the warmth. And it's starting to look at all of that. So that's sort of the first two in that sequence. It finally goes on to planning a school garden or a home garden, where it's thinking about what you can put in using the different categories of plants so that you get that really nice full deep garden effect, but thinking about where they go as well. So using everything that you've learned up until that point and creating something beautiful.
Yeah, that sounds really comprehensive. I love the detail. I've recently been creating some products that have got like scientific names in it, and the same thing, I can't pronounce them myself. But we've had a lot of fun, me and my daughter, doing product testing on that. We've created a kind of top trump style game, which is part of one of our subscription boxes for spring. I always find that when I'm preparing any of these things, I've got a little bit of knowledge, but all the time learning new things myself. And I think that's what I love about doing outdoor learning and creating content for that, because there's so much still to know about the world and about the planet, isn't there, and the creatures and what lives amongst us and around us, and and our impact on it. You've kind of given us a sort of taster of what you do. If I want to find out more, or our listeners want to find you, where should they look for you?
And two main places start off as our website, because you're going to get the freebies on there anyway. So that's just www.loveoutdoorlearning.com. And if you jump to the resources page, that's where you're going to get the freebies. So that's really good. But I also make sure and keep our social media up to date. So whether it's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I think Facebook and Instagram, to be honest, have a little bit more detail because you've got the added word count in there. But it's a good place just to keep on top of things and get those ideas, especially ones that link to awareness days, and that little nudge a week or two before to remind you that it's coming up.
Yeah, I love that. That's kind of like giving parents and teachers that kind of little bit of help in terms of like planning, isn't it, if they want to. Fantastic. I've so enjoyed having you on today, Carol. It's always lovely to meet like-minded people, obviously. And I love what you're doing and your passion for it. And I hope that your company, Love Outdoor Learning, continues to grow and go from strength to strength. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Curious About Nature. If you would like to keep getting nature and outdoor learning stories and tips, hit subscribe in the podcast so you never miss an episode. Don't forget to give a 5-star rating and review to support our podcast reach. To deepen your child's connection with nature and natural world education, please check out the Nature Curious subscription box. Head over to the website buttercuplearning.com to further support your family's nature journey.